She had the highest technical score, a standout candidate for this job interview. Her English, grammatically perfect. She ticked all of the boxes, and yet she did not get the role. If you want to know what the feedback from the panel was, you want to stay connected to this episode. Whatever it is you're doing, the laundry, your workout, making dinner, make sure you listen to this closely. The feedback from the panel was she did not read the room. Something felt off. What is that, right? Ladies and gentlemen, more and more leaders, recruiters are using intuition to hire on top of everything else. And you want to know what tips the scale? Emotional intelligence. And if you are walking into that room without your emotionally intelligent voice, you're going to be overlooked. You're going to miss the opportunity. You will not be heard. This episode is for professionals who want to lead in English, who want to lead anywhere and everywhere. So listen up. My name is Leonilda Ronaldo, language coach, emotional intelligence leader who teaches how to speak under pressure. Not just how to speak, but how to influence, inspire, and inform in any professional situation. This person I'm describing to you is an actual person. She seemed too rigid for the panel, and so she did not get the job. What they were describing as not being able to read the room was emotional intelligence. It was a gap that despite having the technical know-how, if you're missing that, you're missing the opportunity. You cannot measure emotional intelligence in a training budget. But guess what? You can hear it or not in 30 seconds. In the first 30 seconds of a meeting, you can. This episode is for learning and development managers, HR directors, CEOs, and leaders who want to invest in the right thing. Most EQ training stops at awareness, but very few actually tackle the voice. In today's episode, we're going to look at hear three EQ voices. What I'd like for you to do at the end of this episode is to go back and listen. Where do you fare? Which voice do you recognize as your own in those high stakes moments? Ready? Here we go. So, just for the record, EQ, emotional intelligence, is not about being nice. It's about being precise in those high stakes conversations. With voice number one, we're going to hear what you sound like or what you say under pressure. Under pressure, francophone leaders often default to blunt or overly literal English because they want to sound smart. The vocabulary of diplomacy disappears in those moments, and that's when you need it the most. Low EQ word choice, for example, sounds like this. That is wrong. The high IQ alternative is, I see this differently. Can we look at the data together? A low EQ word choice. Another example. I do not agree. A high EQ alternative is, I want to make sure I understand your position before I respond. The principle in high EQ word choice buys you time, builds trust, and keeps the conversation open. Low EQ word choice closes those doors. So I'm going to give you a sentence, and I'd like for you to try and find what the high EQ version of that sentence is. The sentence is, your proposal will not work. I'd love for you to pause right here, rewrite the high EQ alternative of that phrase, and then come back. Oh, I want to ask you something. When was the last time you had a high stakes conversation? If you book your 30-minute conversation with me, I listen to how you speak under pressure. I tell you what I hear, what's working, what's not working, and what to prioritize. What if you knew what gets in the way every time you communicate under pressure. And that pressure could look different for different people. Maybe it's a presentation, a meeting, an idea that you want to share, but something got lost between your thinking and the words you used. That's what this is for. It's free, it's private, and it will be the most useful 30 minutes you will invest in your career this month. Book your call now. The link is in the show notes. No need to over-translate from French or your mother tongue to a formal register, which sounds cold in English boardrooms. Or what happens is that you go too casual because you've learned English on Netflix, which reads as unprofessional. Register is EQ, like sweet nothings in your ear. It's reading the room and then matching it, or deliberately choosing not to. An example, a performance conversation requires a different register, different than a brainstorm. A board update is not the same as a team debrief. The mistake learning and development programs make, they teach grammar but not register. They teach vocabulary but not the social intelligence to deploy it. Register is not about accent. It's not about fluency. It's about reading what the moment needs and having the English to deliver it. Now, voice number 3, silence. The beauty of silence. What you do not say and when. Oof. You know, the most eloquent speakers of this world, you look at Queen Elizabeth, King Charles, Barack Obama, Gandhi, Maya Angelou, Mary Oliver. Pay attention to those moments where they pause, or simply silence is their language. Silence. They give themselves the silence to be able to respond, not react, which is totally what emotional intelligence is. Now, the problem with non-native English speakers and even native English speakers is that we like to fill the space with like, or the same word that's repeated again and again. It could be a nice word, like essentially. But when you pour essentially into every single phrase, well, it's just taking up space. It's just there to sound smart. But you're not here to sound smart. You're here to connect, build relationships, collaborate, move the needle, brainstorm, implement. That's what you're here for. That is why you have decided to lead this project, this team. If you're filling it up with space just to sound smart, where are you leaving space to connect with your fellow humans? High EQ silence is a strong point, and it sounds like, give me a moment, and you pause elegantly. Then you respond. Low EQ silence, rushing to fill the gap, which often produces the exact language errors that undermine credibility. The learning and development opportunity here is teach leaders to weaponize the pause. It is a leadership tool, ladies and gentlemen, not a vulnerability, not to be confused for weakness. Now, if I'm sharing this with you today in this episode, it's because it is a real lived experience, one with a client. Let's call her Claire, a leader in her organization. This organization was a pharmaceutical organization. And she had all the boxes ticked. Her English was on point. She wasn't reading the room, though. And every time she left a meeting, she felt that something was off. She felt like she needed more vocabulary, when in fact, what she needed was the emotional intelligence to be able to read the room, which was the empathy, understand what was happening and who was happening. She also needed to listen to herself, to trust that what she had to bring to that meeting was good stuff. She also needed the assertiveness to get her point across, to use the pause purposely. 6 months later, after we worked together, she led her first global town hall. I was so happy for her. I was so proud of her. 150 people in the room. This was all in English. No apologies, no filler words. She paused when she needed to. She took up the space she needed. She chose her words with intention. She brought intention into that meeting. She read the room. She influenced, she informed, and she even inspired colleagues who had seen her before she had had the EQ training. She was able to make emotional intelligence audible. We know people who are not emotionally intelligent, but do we know what they sound like? Claire sounded like an emotionally intelligent leader. If you are a learning and development manager, HR director, and you're hearing this thinking, we're not training for this, you're right. Most programs aren't. And this is exactly why I do what I do and why I want to have this conversation with you. The link is in the show notes. I'd love for you to tell me what's showing up for you when you did the mini drill of that sentence where you had to pause, remember, and come back to it with the low EQ voice and the high EQ alternative. Just have fun with this and see where it takes you. And most importantly, let's have that conversation. My name is Leonilda Ronaldo, and it's been a pleasure spending this time with you today. Thank you for taking me with you wherever you are in this moment that you're listening. You just heard the 3 voices of EQ. Now I want to hear yours. I offer a 30-minute private conversation, just the 2 of us, where I listen to how you speak English under pressure. In this conversation, I listen to how you're communicating, what's working well, what you should focus on first, and how you can fix it. It's free, and I call it the speaking audit. If you're a leader in an organization and you are tired of being overlooked, or you want to invest in the right thing, let's talk. The link is in the show notes. Speak to you soon.